Okay.
My name is Mayalan Keita Brown. It's spelled Mayalan is Mayalan, and Keita Keita hyphen Brown, Brown.
Okay.
Mayalan Keita Brown.
Okay, thank you. And so tell me first, just give me a brief kind of sketch of your life, where you're from, how you came to be in Minnesota, how long you've been here, what you're doing, the kinds of work that you're engaged in.
I'm originally from Liberia, West Africa, and I was a lawyer in Liberia, and I won the lottery visa, so I was able to come here with my green card already. I've been here for the past 6 years, and I've been working with the Women Initiative for Self-Empowerment, WISE, and we collaborate and partner with the African and American Friendship Association for Cooperation and Development, AAFACD. Mm-hmm. This is my car. We work with the Foreign Trained Healthcare Professional Program. These are medical doctors and nurses who were already credentialed in their countries of origin, but coming here, they are not allowed to practice. Mm-hmm. Or they are not licensed to work in the area of expertise. And many of them end up being taxi drivers, parking attendants, and maybe hotel attendants, just at entry-level jobs. Mm-hmm. And our organization, or the program, the Foreign Trained Healthcare Professional Program, is to ensure that the people's voices are heard, and we do a lot of advocacy for policy change, for them to get into residency and be able to get their licensure. Uh-huh. And with the advocacy, we start on the grassroots level with community-based organizations or community-based leadership, and we also go to the level of the legislature, both local and federal. Mm-hmm. And we work with so many other foundations that have been funding us, and we, with the Office of Refugee Resettlement, uh-huh. they are our main funder on this program. And recently we just realized that what we have been advocating for is like recertification of these professionals, and the Office of Refugee Resettlement is more or less giving us that credential. Uh-huh. To go ahead and see how we can really get them recertified. Uh-huh. Because when we first started the program, it was like 25 persons that were identified through technical assistance from Kura. The university, Kura is part of the U of M program. Mm-hmm. They gave us some technical assistance to identify foreign trained healthcare professionals in Minnesota. And through that program, we have been able to enroll in a program over 200 persons.
Wow. 200 people representing about how many different nationalities?
These are people from all over Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Eastern Europe, uh-huh. Central and Latin America. Uh-huh. And our agency is so diverse, and we just work with any group of people. Uh-huh. The reason we are not presently supporting the other immigrants is because of funding. The funding that we have really for only refugees, asylees, and entrants from Cuba. So we are very limited. But like 2 years ago, the state funded us also, but that was a pilot program. So
how long is the process for someone who finds your organization to get recertified? How long does that generally take?
It depends on the individual, but we have found out that the younger group of people who just coming out of medical school quickly get recertified than the older folks, because there's a policy that states that if you are out of medical school after 7 years, then it makes it more difficult for you to get lesson because of the time factor and also the age factor, and there are so many other challenges and barriers that stop these people from getting into the medical profession.
And probably trust too. I mean, does it take a...
That is quite true, because then when we talk with some agency to extend internship to these medical professionals, they are like, oh, we really don't know these people. But through our and working with stakeholders in the healthcare system, our agency, AFACD, and the Women Initiative for Self-Empowerment are becoming reputable on becoming known that our clients are of reputable character, because we do a lot of vetting, screening of these people, and making sure that they are of the best. And some of them take the exam, the medical exam, and they pass 90, 95. One even had about 98%. So it's not a matter of not knowing what to do, because most of these people, and even though they were trained outside of the United States, but they are trained with United States materials, educational materials. So you cannot say that they don't know what they are doing. And also the challenge could be language barrier. So we collaborate with an agency also, the Language Global Institute, that we teach them the American culture of speaking or culture of communication. So that have been helpful also.
Is it your sense that the healthcare establishment or establishments, that whole configuration, that's a place that has been in general more hospitable to immigrant workers?
I'm not sure if you say they have been hospitable, because what I have noticed personally is that when immigrants come into the United States, they are categorized according to which country they are coming from. Most English-speaking immigrants are put into the healthcare areas because they are like, oh, they speak English. And take the Mexicans for example, they are put into construction area because most of them come as masons or carpenters, and the Hmong are put into farming areas. So people...
They're very different avenues.
Yeah.
So, no, go ahead.
And the Liberians mostly have been put into nursing homes because they speak very good English and they are compassionate, caring and everything. And I have been involved with the advocacy in the Liberian community for permanent residency for Liberians on temporary protective status. and we have been involved like since 2007. And I work with the Jewish Community Action and the advocates for human rights, and the Catholic sisters, and so many other organizations. Also, we work with an organization of Liberians in Minnesota, which is the umbrella organization for all Liberian and communities or entities. We've been trying to ensure that Liberians who have been here for more than 17, 20 years get their permanent residency, which has been very difficult.
Right. Wait, let me back up just a little bit before we get back to the politics of citizenship. Can you just tell me a little bit more about, I guess, your own decision to come, not just to the U.S., but to Minnesota, and about the longer kind of development of the Liberian community here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. How is it that, I mean, it's a sizable community, it seems. I don't know what the numbers are. But how was it that Liberians began finding their way to this area?
Well, Minnesota has been a very welcoming community, and Liberians come here because of economic reason. Many states compared to Minnesota, from all indication, and Liberians found out that it is a bit difficult to get employment in other states. And the job, before the financial crisis, here you could easily get employed. So people tend to come quickly here. But for me, my siblings were here before me, and many of them are here. So when I decided to come to the States, they are like, you have to come here. So, and normally it is easier and better when you have your relatives all in one area.
Are there still family members back in Liberia who you expect will eventually be coming this direction?
Yes, we hope if they can get accepted to come. Yeah, so it's the whole of Liberians being in Minnesota with the rest of us is economic reasons. You have better employment, you have better pay, and everything is just around that.
Okay, so then back to the kind of political struggles. What are the specific challenges that the Liberian community is facing right now in terms of the kinds of status changes that you were talking about that they're struggling for?
You know, Liberia has been like I wouldn't say a stepchild, but Liberians were here before, and in 1821-22, ex-slaves were taken from here and sent to Africa, and they end up in Liberia for resettlement. And they were there, but their roots were here. And most Liberians consider themselves, even the whole of Africa, consider Liberians a stepchild or a child of America. So if you run from Liberia, the first place you would think about is coming to America. And when the Civil War came to Liberia, many of the Liberians found themselves becoming refugees, and not only refugees, just running and coming here and hoping that things would be better. And from all indication, it was like we're going back home. But from the time they have been here, every year they have been renewing their temporary protective status until the election of the president, Helen Johnson Sirleaf. Then when she stated, I think at the UN conference or so, that everything was back to normal in Liberia, the United States government decided, okay, things are all right in Liberia. Now it's time for the Liberians to leave.
Right.
But what the government of America failed to realize that even though you might say things are all right in Liberia, but coming from 17 years of civil war cannot make things right in 2 to 3 years. Things are not normal in Liberia. There is higher rate of crime, and there is a lower rate of health issue. There is a lower rate of education, and you can't get water. You can't get water. Electricity is out of question. And the roads are bad, everything. The infrastructure on the whole is just down to nothing. So the rate of unemployment is so high. So you can say that things are all right. But I'm thinking maybe the president, when she said that, she meant good. But is having a very bad effect on the Liberian group here, because they who are here are also people who send out money to Liberia to relatives, and they more or less sustaining the Liberian and back home, their relatives back home. So if you get them out of here and say go back home, I don't know what that means. It's like sending people to the worst kind of punishment.
Are there people who have already been sent back?
Well, no, not with the termination of the temporary and protective status, because fortunately when the status was terminated, and during President Bush time, he extended it to 18 months. And that ended last year. Just when that ended, President Obama also extended it for 1 year. And that 1 year is ending, the deadline is March 31st.
Okay, so soon.
So soon.
Is there any indication of what's going to happen at that point?
We don't know, because they got all Liberians on edge. And Liberians have been very good citizens or nationals, paying taxes and taking care of the old folks in the homes here. And many of the senators, the representatives, or key decision makers, their old folks are at homes. These I don't know how you call the homes anyway, but the Liberians take good care of them. So we have been talking to a few legislatures to appeal to them to sign on to the Dear Colleague letters and be able to talk to their other colleagues to sign on to letters or bills to allow Liberians to gain permanent residency. And we are hopeful that finally it will work out. But it's not to the best interest of both Liberia and to America by sending out Liberians back home. because the whole world, like I said, Africa especially, they looking out to see how America will treat Liberia.
Right.
If Liberia is not being treated well by Africa, even if America goes to other African states, they work with them, but there will always be that doubt of trust. If you cannot treat people who were originally from your home, who are considered part of you, if you can't treat them well, will you be able to treat us well?
From the point of view of both Africans in Africa and Africans here in the United States, can you talk about how this political change here has been experienced, the change from the Bush administration to the Obama administration? Because my sense is that most Americans feel that there couldn't be more difference between those two people, right? But on certain issues, there's been, I think, less difference between the two administrations than some people might expect. So how have the politics of all of these things looked as as the U.S. has gone through these political changes in the last year or 18 months?
Well, like I told you before, I'm not I don't have my citizenship, and I have not voted for any government yet. And it's the same thing with Liberians. Majority of them don't have their citizenship, especially these people that we have been advocating for. So when it comes to politics, it's like we just have to appeal to the government to give us some sort of citizenship recognition and make sure that we stay here legally, because we hate to be here illegally, and it will affect us and the children who are born here also. And also it will affect the education of these children who are born here and who will remain here, because this they recognize as their home. So we're coming to the politics era of Bush and Obama. We just hope for the best for them, for the whole country. That's what I would think. I hope that the country, any decision that is being made at the highest level is being made with the interests of the citizens and the whole country at heart.
Here in Minnesota, I mean, it's a complicated picture because, I mean, for example, the Liberians are facing a very particular challenge based on something that's happening or has happened in their home country that is different from other immigrant groups around. So here in Minnesota, I mean, how much contact is there between different immigrant groups around the broader questions of immigrants' rights, citizenship, anti-deportation, all of those kinds of issues that affect different groups differently but are kind of connected? Is there a lot of coordination and communication between different groups?
Yeah, there's a lot of coordination. We, through our and organizing and mobilizing on the Liberian issue, we're over to work with some other organization to the point of where we form the coalition for for permanent permanent residency. And this coalition and purpose or aim is to include all immigrants regardless of where you are from, and be able to advocate for your permanent residency. And we also affiliate ourselves with AFFIRM, Alliance for Fair for Fair Immigration Reform Act. And also there's CIR, the Comprehensive Immigration Reform that we try to work with, because all that the Liberians or other immigrants all have commonality with this comprehensive immigration reform. And we think that as Liberians, if that reform is passed, that bill is enacted, and it will benefit us too. Even if it doesn't benefit us, but it might benefit a larger group of immigrants who are similarly situated like the Liberian community. And we hope that also with the DREAM Acts, it will be able to help our kids and the kids of other immigrants to be able to go to college and gain education. Because we feel that if a country is educated, it solves a lot of problems and crimes in the communities too. So we have been very involved with almost 15 different organizations that have the same idea.
In terms of the economics of the region, I know that Minnesota, or at least this part of Minnesota, has not been hit as hard as many places in the country. If you just look at the unemployment rate over time, although there have been moments where it's been pretty bad. Have immigrant communities been hit especially hard by that, or I mean, how has the experience of the last 2 years or so been for the immigrant communities that you're working with?
The immigrants too have suffered a lot of unemployment. Like last year, this year, some of the people you expect are working, you talk to them, they are like, oh, I got laid off. And these are people who really have their families to take care of. And any economic impact on any immigrant here, it will show on their countries of origin too. Because like I said, most of us send money back home to our relatives. There is no kind of job that the relatives back home are doing, and they depend on their relatives here to remit money back home. So that is affecting the immigrant community. And there is another thing also. There was something else that I was thinking about, and I just forgot about the job issue.
Well, that's okay. We can come back to it. But can you tell me? I know that the organization you're working with, you're dealing mostly with professionals and mostly health professionals. But what other kinds of work are Liberians doing in Minneapolis, St. Paul?
Most Liberians are into nursing home. Yeah, that's the word I wanted to use before. Into nursing homes. But most of them too, who are not in nursing home, are being supported by their spouses. So they are in schools, maybe trying to get their masters or so. And that makes it difficult for the family also, or for the community. And few of them into other areas. But our program right now, we're trying to write a proposal to see how we can incorporate or expand the program to other professionals, not only medical professionals, but like teachers and accountants, lawyers, engineers.
Well, speaking of which, so you're a lawyer. You studied in Liberia.
Yeah.
And what did you have to do to be able to practice?
I'm not practicing.
You're not practicing. No. So your law degree actually, I mean, it benefits you in kind of the store of knowledge that you have, but you're not using it.
No, I'm not licensed to practice here, so I'm not practicing as a lawyer. I will consider myself more as a social worker and then a community organizer.
Uh-huh.
So,
is this the kind of work that you thought you would be doing when you came 6 years ago?
well, I didn't think that I would be I don't know, because when I was back in Liberia, even though I was a lawyer and sometimes I would go in the courtroom doing trials with my colleagues, but I was also working with the female lawyers of Liberia, and we used to do a lot of community organizing and civic engagement, community education. So when I came here, I was like, oh, okay, I just go back and do those things, reach out to the community. So I have been doing a lot of outreaching for these two organizations, and doing a lot of awareness building of the issues that we have in our programs, because many Americans did not know that they have a lot of resources in these immigrants that come, professional immigrants. So our organizations have been building awareness among decision makers, key decision makers. We in the communities, we healthcare institutions, and the Senate, the legislature. So it's like I'm staying in my area.
Uh-huh. What's the thing that has surprised you the most about your experience in the United States?
What is really surprising me the most is that even though immigrants and refugees are allowed to come, there's not much. They are not encouraged, or they are not given the best opportunity to get into jobs that they really learned from back home, or they were expecting from back home. Because I think that is due to the culture of employment here. People come very different, with different ideas and expectations, and when we get here, we see that it's a different attitude altogether. And I don't know whether it's because the normal American does not trust immigrants, or what's the reason, or they just some would think that, oh, these immigrants come and get our jobs from us.
Right.
But
do you hear that? I mean, is that a real part of your kind of daily experience here? That level of hostility against immigrants?
well, from questions asked, it's like, what are you doing here? Do you think you know how to do this job? Can you do this? So when you ask those kind of questions, it's like, you trying to take my job away from me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the idea that, say, these people have been very protective of their jobs. But what is happening is that it is not necessary, because the jobs that immigrants are doing are mostly jobs that Americans themselves don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So why being so overprotective? Give the immigrant chance to do their jobs, and give them the opportunity to get into get the lessons. Those who are professionals to get their licensures to be able to practice in the area of field. Like for instance, with the foreign trained healthcare professionals, they tell them you have to take tests, or even though we see your credential is good, but you have to go back and start from chemistry 101. That is like saying no.
Mm-hmm.
Because these people already have gone, maybe have done 10, 15 years in the medical area back home. And then you say go back to chemistry 101.
Mm-hmm.
And the schools are doing that. So it becomes very frustrating for people.
Mm-hmm.
And most times they are like, okay, I will take anything, any kind of job to sustain my family. And that means the American dream is down the line.
Yeah. What did that phrase, the American dream, what did that mean to you when you were still in Liberia?
When I was staying in Liberia, I really had no American dream. Because like I said, I was already working. I had a very good job, and I was there during the 17 years of war in Liberia. Even the last one, 2003, I was there. But my siblings who came ahead, they were so worried about me during the war, and when the bombs were dropping all over, and they called, they say, what are you doing there? I said, I don't know, where do I go? I never had an inkling about, say, oh, let me pack up and go to America. So one of them said, why don't you apply for the lottery visa? I said, usually I do those things, I don't win, so I'm not even applying. And my brother was like, apply. If you win, it will not be for you, but for your kids. At least get your kids out of the country. Then it clicked, yeah, my kids. I have to get my kids out to safety. And fortunately for me, when I applied, sent in my application for the lottery diversity visa, I won. Then we started working from there to come. The day I came my application, no, when I was informed that I have won the lotto, I was told to get some applications together, some other forms and things, and take it to the embassy. The day I went to the embassy, that's when the whole chaos started again in 2003.
It was that day?
That day. So when I get my papers, with my children papers, the consulate at the booth was like, give me a quick and go. I'm like, what happened? Say they are fighting downtown Monrovia. So they just collected my paper and we went. From that, it was like 3 months later, every day was bombardment in the country. Every day. In August, there was ceasefire.
What were you doing during those days? I mean, were you trying to work? And I mean,
sometimes you will say you'll go to work, but it was like just occupying your time. Sometimes you couldn't leave your homes because the rebel has taken over the whole city. There was no way you could leave your home. And we actually left our home like 7 miles away and went to near the American embassy in Mamba Point. So we were there, it were like 300 persons in one building. And I don't know, but you will say God help each and every one of us, because all around us there were bullets they were killing people. But this building here, the only thing that the rebel did was to go, we had a car park in the yard, and that's all they wanted. So we didn't mind that. And they didn't bother anybody, but all our neighborhoods around the building, people were being taken out and shot. There was so much chaos. So when I went in September for the interview and I was told that I'll be able to come with my kids, I was happy.
That must have been a long 3 months.
Yes.
I can't even imagine. So, I mean, there must have been days you thought you were not going to get out.
Yes, yes. I remember one morning they were sending rockets from one part of the city to the next, and it was like the rocket was passing over us. So I'm like, God, I don't know. We are in your hands. And we all were lying down flat on the ground and just praying. But in my mind that day, I said, boy, this must be my last day on earth.
Wow. So you must have just been in disbelief when you actually did make it out.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. When we got out, it was unbelievable. So you see, with America, when you come, it's like a savior. Then they say, go back. It's like, are you trying to kill me?
Yeah. Are there American politicians who are really hearing that argument? I mean, are they understanding what this policy means?
Yeah. Jack Reed of Rhode Island, he sent in a bill that has not been passed, and Senator Kennedy, I think it's John Kennedy, he was also a co-sponsor of that bill, and Keith Allison, Representative Keith Allison here, he has been a vanguard in the whole process. And Senator Amy Klobuchar, she was, yeah, she helped us. Like a group of us left from here one time and went to DC, and we met like 20 senators and representatives and talked to them. Some of them acted, that's how I would say, they acted that it was their first time hearing about the Liberian issue, which I personally did not want to believe. But it was good because it built some awareness among people.
Mm-hmm.
And
but now you must find that all the time. I mean, how often do you meet an American who really seems to know much at all about anything that's happened in Africa?
Yeah, because I've been doing a lot of presentations in schools, especially with the school kids. They really don't know what is happening, and when you ask about the parents really don't know. So that's where I became convinced that you have to get out. You have to talk to people, you have to tell your stories, or it will not go anywhere. And in mobilizing, organizing, you have to talk. And if you notice, my voice is very soft, I talk slow and everything, but I believe that if you are determined, you can do a whole lot. But you have to reach out to the people and get people involved, build up their interest. If people are not interested in your issue, it can't go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, on that note, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you feel we should?
I just like to emphasize that immigrants are here to help in the growth and development of the country. And most of them, even though they are running away from persecution, but they are happy to be here, and they should be given the chance of gaining citizenship. Even though I'm not in that category, but I see a lot of immigrants who are considered illegal, undocumented. There should be a system to create a situation for these people to be legal and documented, so that they are not forced into situations where they become labeled as criminals.
Mm-hmm.
Because take the Liberians for instance, if you don't give them and protective status, any kind of protective status here, you just say, oh, you don't extend and defer enforcement departure, or you don't give them permanent residency, and they are out of status, many of them become criminals. And even their children, they will start working on that table, start doing jobs that they are not supposed to do, and that way even cut down on the taxes that the government is receiving. Mm-hmm. Because they will not be reporting whatever income they are getting. So it's good to make them legal, give them documentation, and you can gain a lot from them by sending them home or by taking them out of status. I hope I'm making sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. You've been very generous with your time, and I'm really appreciative.
Thank you, Ma.